Let's be honest, most men drift. We wake up, we scroll, we work, and then we just rinse and repeat. And we know we're softer than we should be. That's why I built the 31-day resilience reset. This is not a devotional. It is a field manual for men ready to stop drifting and start fighting back. So for 31 days, you'll train your spirit, mind, and body with scripture, prayer, and daily challenges that forge real resilience. Go to www.Undaunted.Life/31 days to download this resource for free. That's Undaunted.Life/31 days. Start your reset today. This is Undaunted Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, Joby, we got to give people a peek behind the curtain right from the beginning here, because you and I just had what could only be called a kerfuffle, right? You know, there's a bit of an issue here because, you know, most of the time it's Ask a Pastor. But then last year we experimented with Ask a Podcaster, where you came on here grinning like an idiot with like 8 pages of questions for me because you were like so giddy to try to like get me canceled. And then I was like, hey, for January or for the February episode, do you want to do Ask a Podcaster again? And it was like, yeah. But somehow that fell through the cracks with your 84 assistants and the 74 plane trips that you've taken or something like that. So here we sit, Joby. I have no questions prepared for you. And you have no questions prepared for me. So what do we do?
Whatever you say. It's your podcast.
All right. So we're going to Bill O'Reilly this thing. We're going to do it live. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to absolutely do our level best because we're both extemporaneous speakers, right? So we kind of have our notes. We kind of have an idea where we're going, but then we just kind of flow. So I'm going to just lead off with something. I got to come up with something. That's why I'm doing this very long intro to try to figure out a first question. And then you'll figure out a question. And then we'll just go back and forth and just see if it's any good. See if the content's any good.
Okay.
Oh, I got one. Because you're wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars hat. So on the last Ask a Pastor, I asked you who was going to win the college football playoff. And this was before the playoff started. And you very, very confidently said, who was it? Who did you say was definitely going to win the national title? Who'd you say? Who was it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But if we go back to the tape, Landon, we don't even need to go back to the tape because you started singing some weird song. You said Georgia Bulldogs, Georgia Bulldogs. But they got beat by the Lane Kiffinless Ole Miss Rebels, you know? But here you are also wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars hat. And by the time this comes out, Joby, the playoffs for the NFL would have already started. I think the only thing left will be the Super Bowl, is I think how all this turns out. So let's go ahead and get your Super Bowl prediction for this year.
It's got to be the mighty, mighty Jacksonville Jaguars.
Really?
Got to be.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
You have to give us, it can't just be why not. I'm wearing the hat. Hey, I got to, be a homer. What's your reasoning for how they can meander their way through the AFC as the non-top seed or whatever and actually make their way to the Super Bowl, wherever that is?
Well, a couple things. We start out with the Buffalo Bills, and they have a good running game, but we have the number 1 run defense in the league. I would say Trevor, up to this point, is playing hotter than any other quarterback. Actually, his numbers are a little bit better than Josh Allen's, but for some reason, he doesn't get credit for that because we're a small market team. The number 1 seed in the AFC is the Denver Broncos, and anybody that's got a brain, watch what happened when we went to Mile High and just beat them down. So, I mean, it is not far-fetched that the Jags could legitimately make a run for the Super Bowl. But it's tough, man. It is a tournament. It is one and done. If you lose, you go home. So. And it's the NFL, so you have no idea what might happen. But defense is playing well. They got a good running game. Trevor's playing great. I think we could do it.
So is it safe to say to all the Trevor Lawrence haters, to all the Trevor Lawrence doubters, somewhere along that spectrum, that those guys can just go sit down and shut their mouths for a little bit, or are you still in the TBD category?
No, I think there's enough evidence now. I think he's got the right coach with Liam. And Liam knows how to coach him, and the system works for him. And he had something like 4 or 5 different coaches and offensive coordinators in his time. So I just think it was, one, I think we expect too much from quarterbacks too soon, straight out of college and into the league. And it's just so much faster. And I think that Liam Cohen knows how to coach him, knows how to cater it to Trevor. And so I think that combo is going really, really well. So go Jags.
You heard it here first. Joby is the ultimate homer, and that's just going to be
For
how it's
sure.
going to be. So I gave you long enough to think about your first question. So fire away, and then while I'm answering mine, I'll be thinking about my next one.
All right, with the rise of popularity of podcast for all things, like everything from news to opinion, what do you think the future of like traditional mainstream news and even now traditional cable news is?
Yeah, I would say I actually thought about this recently. I forget who I was talking to. I was talking with J. Warner Wallace, a great Christian apologist, and he's been on the show a few times, great author. And he was talking about how like none of this is going to last. None of this stuff that we're doing right now is going to last, because he talked about in the apologetic space. He's like, 50 years ago, the most famous Christian apologist was this guy. But, none of his stuff got transferred kind of into the new media. And so nobody thinks about him. They're thinking about J. Warner Wallace, or they're thinking about William Lane Craig, or they're thinking about Cliff, nobody can pronounce his last name guy that goes to, college campuses and, does the squat thing. Like, so it just depends. Now he was like, because, you don't see people converting stuff from 8 tracks to, whatever is today. But I think we're in a different era, actually. Because the stuff that was being played, in the cars that you started with 8 tracks and all that kind of stuff, we can just ask our phone to play it for us. True. And so we have all of that. And so we used to have a setup, Joby, where you didn't have to remember, that you had to remember what the media said, because after they said it, you couldn't go back and check and make sure. Now, maybe you had a newspaper clipping, or maybe you had something like that, like, okay, this is what they thought at the time, but this is what they think now. But I think the ubiquity of podcasting is so substantial that the mainstream media has lost its stranglehold on capital T truth. But there's the other side swing, which goes back to, number one for how to avoid being a crappy man this year, was we have to hold our, our truth tellers to a high level, a high evidentiary standard, because then you have people that have large profiles like a Candace Owens or an Ian Carroll or a Tucker Carlson that are saying things that are not substantiated or not substantiatable, and then people are just taking it as news. And so that's part of the problem is we're kind of in this weird period where it's like, wait a minute, is this news or is this opinion? Because like when I'm going through something that's newsworthy, I try to just present the facts and then I will editorialize. But some people are just like weaving in and out and switching back and forth. But then, it's kind of like when people put on their journalist face and then they'll put on their comedian mask and then they'll put on something else. It's like, it's a bit of an issue.
Do you think there is such thing as a free press today, or do you think it's kind of all bought and paid for, where it's either, big money behind whatever cable news they're selling a product, right? They're not just reporting the news, and you tune into the one that you like the best, right?
Yeah,
I think honestly, it's not much difference than me being a Jags fan. Yeah. I'm not simply watching football for the sake of football. I'm supporting my team. And if you watch CNN, there's a certain team you support. And if you're a Fox News guy, there's a certain team you support. And then if you think those are bought and paid for, then you pick your favorite crazy podcaster and then you get behind that. So do you think there's any actual, free press journalism anymore?
The only free press I would say would be the solo journalists. So we're like, look at that Nick Shirley kid that was like walking around Minnesota, like going up to these daycare centers being like, hey, y'all got any kids here? And some Somali person at the door who speaks 4 words of English is basically like, no kids here. But I'll tell you this, like obviously CNN, Fox News, anything mainstream is bought and paid for. I look especially askant at media sources who like in their byline or like in their, charter basically says we're independent, like we're independent journalists. Yeah, they're the ones where I'm like, wait a minute. Are you sure? You sure that there's nobody that's influencing you? There's nobody that's like, oh yeah, hey, I'll help a little bit out here, or hey, we'll buy, subscriptions for our entire network and all that. But hey, we're in oil and gas, and so, maybe take it easy on the oilies. So those are the ones that I'm like, especially like, hey, I don't really know why you're going that direction.
Don't you also think that the echo, I got follow-ups. Don't you also think that the echo chamber of the solo podcaster now, and this could even include you. If you've just got the echo chamber, it's hard not to only hear from the likes and clicks and even critics that completely shape what you do. So, I mean, I got to think that's what maybe began to send Candace Owens down the rabbit hole of crazy that she's down, because when she just starts, making up conspiracy theories based on dreams and feelings, and that gets the most traction, then it's a confirmation bias that she thinks she ought to continue down that path. What do you think?
That's one of the reasons why I don't read the comments. That's one of the reasons why when someone sends me an angry email about something I said on the show or something I covered in Quick Hitters, or, why didn't you cover this, but you covered that? I always I try to be as nice as possible, understanding this person had such a bad day that they sought out a podcaster's contact page and fired off a poorly worded email complaining about something. So there's probably some more stuff going on there. But it's always like, hey, what was your best case scenario when you sent this email off? That I would respond with, hey, give me your phone number. I want to call you and thank you for castigating me as a stranger, in my inbox. Allow me to delete 850 episodes and start anew using your standards for decency. But I basically say, hey, thanks for the feedback. Best of luck to you, like that kind of a thing. But part of the reason why I don't take advice from strangers, why I don't take critique from people that I wouldn't take advice from, and why I don't read the comments is because I don't want what I create to bend in any particular direction. I almost said erection. Yeah, guys, it almost happened. There you go. I'm that guy now on the podcast. I don't want it to bend in any particular direction towards anything other than the word of God or what God's telling me to do. Right?
Right.
So kind of similar like with the Daily Blade, I'll be like, because I'm about to write a new Daily Blade like today, for here in a couple of weeks. It's like, God, it's your audience. What do you want me to tell them? Like, what do you want to say through me? What do you want me to cover? And then don't you know it, something pops in and it's like, this would be interesting. And I didn't come up with that idea. It was placed there by God. But if I'm like, well, there's been some 2-star reviews lately and they really don't like whenever I, talk about music or worship music or something like that. They'd rather me just stick to the Bible and, do that kind of thing. Then it's like, okay, well, maybe I just pull myself that way. Or the opposite, where it's like, yeah, you're not really a Bible teacher, Kyle. Like, you didn't go to seminary. Like, you don't have a fancy degree. So just give me the soft stuff. Talk to me about music or Titanic or, something like that you've done in the past. I don't want the chirping masses to bend my content. If you tell me something or point out something or say, hey, this worked well, or hey, maybe this maybe wasn't so great. If Chandler did it, if any of my forging table guys or my foxhole did it, yeah, I will take that to heart. But for just some random slappy from the internet, I just if that's what you're going to bend your content towards because of clicks and whatever, I just think there's way higher priorities than, clicks and random donations.
What is some of the most consistent criticism that you get?
It's always tone police. It's always, I didn't like how you said that. It's always, well, you should have been nicer to when talking about that person. Hey, you should have found Andy Stanley on the street and tried to set up a meeting through his assistant before you talked about a public figure publicly. It's usually stuff like that. And again, those are kind of the easiest things to discuss with people. It's like, okay, if you didn't like the way that I said something, I would encourage you to go to one of the other 6.5 million podcasts where people say things in a different way. Because if my tone offends you, it's not going to get better. I promise. It's not going to get better.
Yeah. I always wondered, did they like not know who you are? I mean, was it like one clip of you that they heard and not the whole library of
Yeah, it's usually because
Kyle?
People that just respond in the comment section on Instagram, this could be someone who's been familiar with my content for 17 seconds. And so I really don't want to take that person seriously because they're listening to a clip from an entire conversation or interview and they're making a complete declaration about who somebody is based off of that. So it's like, who's less qualified on the planet than that person to give me feedback? But to people that are podcast listeners, or it's like, well, I've been a fan of you for a while, but now it's like, again, what is the best case scenario? Like, you know what I don't do, Joby? If there's a band that I started listening to and I was really jamming out with their stuff, but then on the 7th or 8th or 9th listen to that song. It got a little stale. Imagine me going to their Instagram and sending them a DM and being like, hey, Kings of Leon, like, that song, Sex is on Fire. Well, I don't feel the fire anymore. Like, can you maybe think of something different in the future? It's like, please, like the narcissism that has to be there for you to feel like there's going to be anything positive that happens from your, initial stimulus into the situation is just preposterous.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are pretty confident men in who God created us to be, and we're loud and extroverts and very opinionated, and at the same time deeply rooted in the scriptures and want to be submitted to the Spirit of God, and what God's opinion is the only thing that matters, and we can quote Galatians 1:10 and all the things. And yet, doesn't it irk you how much other people's opinion actually does impact you? Like, it bothers me that it bothers me.
Yeah.
And so I have to avoid, part of it for me, the reason I avoid reading comments and mean emails, I just ain't got time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it on a Monday, because the whole day Monday is dedicated to writing a sermon. And if at 9:00 I decide to just read what somebody thought about me, dude, it can just derail the whole sermon prep day. Again, Wednesday I'm on it, and Thursday I'm preaching. So I have very little time of just mental space to just receive uninvited criticism. And mostly when people criticize me, dude, if you don't like me, no problem. I don't like me. I can't wait until all the me is burned up and it's only Jesus left, and the glorified me is in heaven. I can't wait for that day either. But it pretty much just boils down to people wanted something and they didn't get it.
Well, Joby, we bend towards the pessimistic, both of us in our personalities. So we're attracted to the darker things because we like poking our finger in it and being like, hey, look out, darkness, I'm coming for you. But there's the other side of that coin, which is when you start waiting around in the darkness, it gets on you and it sticks in your brain, because you can have 100 people in the lobby tell you about how much that sermon meant to them, or how much a book meant to them, or how much that clip on Instagram that they saw meant to them. But you have one random person that's just like, yeah, I wasn't really feeling it today. I feel like you just kind of mailed in that sermon. And those words are just going to play over and over and over in your brain. You're sitting there with your head on the pillow and you're like, that stranger in the lobby, said that I just mailed it in. I didn't mail it in. I'm going to show him on my next sermon. I'm going to give 2 times the effort. It's like, no, man. Like, so for me, I guess I don't have the emotional maturity to read people's, strangers' criticism and be like, oh, well, I bet they're just having a bad day. I just don't go there all the time. I got to be in a really good mood to end up with something positive there.
Do you get criticism for what you're not talking about? Like, I got a long email this week. I only saw a piece of it. I quit reading it because I'm not talking about Islam enough. And so I just want to be like, how come you didn't ask about the thousands of Christians being killed in Nigeria right now? You know what I mean? Like, we can play the tragedy game, right? If you're not up to date on all the latest tragedies. And I don't disagree that the rise of Islam in the West is a very, very big deal. I'm not exactly sure at what point I'm preaching on that or where the Bible leads me to preach on that. It may, but in my current series right now, we're teaching through the book of Matthew. But I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, how come you're not talking about, I can almost identify who the primary podcasters they're getting their information from. I can almost identify who they are based on whatever topic they think is the most important topic that I should be talking about.
Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you train for very specific things. So maybe you've got a mud race coming up, a mountain hunt, a 5K, or maybe you just want to keep up with your kids, or you just don't want to let the old man in. But for a lot of you guys, whether you're working out at the Globo gym or even your garage gym, you get there and you just don't know exactly what to do. And so you just kind of settle for the same old workout routine, maybe some bench press, bicep curls, a walk on the treadmill, and you're not really getting the most out of your workout plan. And I want you guys to stop wasting time at the gym. No more settling. It's time for you guys to get a guide to help you reach your fitness goals. And that's why I want to remind you about my good friends at Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough is a fitness and mental toughness app developed by military special operators and mountain hunters that's becoming a global movement for building mentally tough athletes on and off the mountain. Mountain Tough is a native app ready to be downloaded on all platforms, so that includes iPhone, Android, Apple TV, Roku, and there's more. Once you sign up and download the app or access the website, you immediately have access to hundreds of exercise programs and literally thousands of workout videos, thousands. So that includes structured hybrid strength and endurance programs, daily workouts, the full exercise library, mental toughness training, the Mountain Tough community, and accountability. And you can use it all on the go, online or offline, no matter where you decide to train. So if you're just getting started, that's great. They have programs for beginners. If you have minimal or no gear where you train, that's not a factor. They have minimal gear and body weight programs. And guys, if you're wanting to get into or maintain elite level fitness, they've got you covered with programs for top tier athletes too. And for a limited time, Mountain Tough is extending Undaunted Lifers like you an incredible offer. Go to mountaintough.com. That's MTNtough.com and enter the code Kyle when you sign up for a monthly plan to receive your first month free after your 14-day trial. So that's 6 weeks free to make sure this is for you. I'm sure it will be. That is 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app in the world. So stop wasting time. It's time to get real fitness results. Let my friends at Mountain Tough guide the way. Again, go to MTNtough. That's mountaintough.com, promo code Kyle. Well, and so what I ask people, so when somebody's really mad about something I'm not talking about, so literally yesterday I'm writing my next solo episode, and so I won't say which one just in case I got to like scrap the whole thing because something else happens in the news. But it was after a time period, over the holiday, and here I've got all these things I want to talk about, but then I'm like, okay, what are the things that I definitely want to talk about now? And so yesterday I deleted 2 enormous things that have happened in our world, and I'm not going to comment on them because it just didn't fit what I wanted to do with the episode and how much time I have and, the level of effort I can put into the preparation. But when somebody is overwhelmed or burdened with a particular story or a particular subject or philosophy or a group of people or something like that, I'm like, hey, buddy, try to put a mirror up to him and say, maybe this is something you're being called to do. So you're looking at a content creator that you liked at least up to this point to listen to, and you want me to equip you with how to think and act in this particular category. But maybe what God's saying is you are into this so much that maybe it's your thing. Like with Undaunted.Life a few years ago, I thought I was going to get into, and I may still might, but I probably won't, kind of the father-son rites of passage space. But I just kept hearing, I guess it would be from God, that's like, it's just not your lane, right? When sometimes it's like, hey man, that was a pretty rough episode today. I was listening in the car with my kids. I was like, well, that was dumb. Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. And I even gave you a warning. I'm about to talk about some pretty rough stuff and you left it on. Sounds like a dad problem. And so it's just like my lane is equipping men to push back darkness. Now, is marriage a part of that? Yes. Is, making sure your financial house is in order part of that? Sure. But there's all these other different areas that I would rather refer you, similar to what Church of 1122 does, as opposed to y'all trying to create the best pro-life ministry in the Jax area or whatever. You just do First Coast Women's Services, right? You just partner with them and you just, infuse what they're doing with resources and volunteers. And so that's what I just try to tell people is like, if you're so fired up about this thing, you go do something about it. That's not necessarily my job.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good.
Well, I got one question for you, I guess, right? Because you played Mr. Journalist follow-up question. So I heard a quote recently that I had never heard, and I've consumed just about everything Vodi Bakum has ever said, verbally, on video, or written, or whatever. But he was doing an interview someplace, and he was talking about church, okay? Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how, now he wasn't like putting a line in the sand and saying, if you do it this way, you're wrong. It was more like this is what I believe. But he basically was like, if you have multiple services at your congregation, you have multiple congregations. And so I didn't automatically think about a megachurch. I thought about my church, which has slowly grown over 30 years. It was like 400 people, and then it was 700, and then it was 1,500. Now it's maybe 2,500, people in attendance on a Sunday. But we got an 8 a.m., we got a 9:30, and we got an 11. And his thought process was, look, most of the time it's the same people at that service and the same people at the next one, the same people at the next one. And if we are called to be one body, well, parts of the body never even see each other, don't even have a chance to see each other because you got the, 7:22 on Thursday person, and then you've got the middle of the afternoon Sunday person. how could those people be part of the same body? Now, obviously, I know you're not going to agree with Vody because that's not how y'all have decided to do church, but I thought it was an interesting hermeneutic about, okay, how do we explain church and how it should be done? Because, of course, that doesn't even join up and jive with the ecclesia model that we see from the first century. And again, most of the ecclesias didn't meet on Sunday morning, right? They just met when they met, and this was like a daily rhythm for a lot of people.
They gathered house to house, and then they would gather up on the Lord's Day. So, yeah, you're right. So it's a very narrow reading of one word in the New Testament gathering, at the exclusion of a bunch of the other words that are used to describe the church. That's what that is. And I do think that's one of the places where he put his preference up on par with the precepts of God. And I think that's very dangerous. So he does the same. He did the same thing when he was talking about kids ministry.
Kids church, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, look, the ultimate mandate is to make disciples. The way by which we do that, in my opinion, from the New Testament, is there's a whole lot of latitude for a bunch of different churches in a bunch of different contexts to do it a bunch of different ways to accomplish the Great Commission of making disciples that make disciples that make disciples. So family is another word that the Bible uses. It's the primary word that describes the believers in a church, right? And so just because I don't see my brother very much, that doesn't mean he's not my brother. So that I would push back a lot. I would also look at what was actually happening in the first century. And Paul wrote letters to regions of churches and just called them the church. And so those people did not attend the same building even, much less the same time. And yet Paul referred to them as a church, as a part of the Big C church. So again, I think it's a very narrow reading. Yeah. And I also think that's his preference. And he's reading that into the text because that's the way he wanted to do it.
Well, let me actually ask you, and we can probably just wrap up with this. So you've explicitly said before, if you put your preferences above what the word says, you're doing it wrong. And I think that's pretty easy to defend. Right. But let's say the text is nuanced or nebulous or unclear, like legitimately unclear on pick a topic, right? You can find a bunch of theologians.
The type of music. How about this? The type of music you should sing at church.
Okay, so let's take that subject. You're going to find theologians and pastors on both sides. But what do we do? What do we elevate?
It's specific in the Old Testament and it's open in the New Testament. It is prescriptive in the Old Testament and it is descriptive in the New. But there's a big reason why. So in the Old Testament, there's actually the hymn books in there, the Psalms. These are the songs we're going to sing. Because it was to a culture, a people, there was a temple. This is it. And in order for you to be a part of being a Yahweh believer, then you would integrate yourself not just into belief that there's one true God that created all the things and gave us the law, but you submitted yourself to that law, and that law was to a people and to a Jewish way of life. Jesus comes in the New Testament with a new and better covenant to supersede, to fulfill all the law and the prophets, but to expand it. And it is to every tribe, tongue, and nation. And now we don't get specific descriptions of this music is okay and that music's not okay. And you have spent hours talking about the silliness of elevating somebody's cultural preference in music as being more God-pleasing than somebody else's cultural preference in music. So that would be a good example of one. And then what's funny is there's some folks that say, well, listen, the Bible didn't have it, Church of Christ folks are like, well, the Bible didn't have instruments in the New Testament, therefore we can't have instruments. You said that on YouTube. The Bible also didn't have YouTube.
Yeah, in a church with HVAC and electricity and plush seats.
So what they call that is the regulatory principle, and that the New Testament regulates what's okay for church services. And if it's not explicitly mentioned, then it must not be okay. However, nobody actually fully believes in it. That air condition is a great example. Putting your comments about church online is a great example. Wearing closed-toed shoes is a great example. Wearing a tie. You see what I mean? And so you got to be really, really careful. And we all do it. We all have a tendency. I mean, we all like our preferences, no problem. And that's a part of the beauty of all the different kinds of churches around, because God made all kind of different people. And I think we should celebrate that and just be very careful, be very, very careful. Even if it's a matter of conscience of what you do, that what is good for me, if I make it a must for you, that is that Pharisaical kind of legalism that gets people in trouble that Jesus preached against.
All right, well, everybody expects a little bit of goofballery at the end of this. Just made that one up. So here's a question for you. What weighs more, a gallon of water or a gallon of butane?
Oh, wow. I don't know which one is more dense. I guess maybe butane?
Well, it's actually a gallon of water. And do you know why?
I have no idea.
Because butane is a lighter fluid.
You're stepping into your dad joke era, brother.
Man,
you are there.
I feel like when the boys were like 2 and 4, I really started, like when your dad's strength comes in or your old man's strength. When they were like 2 or 4, I really felt it come up. But now that they're 5 and 3, I feel like I'm getting into pro level, right? I'm about
here's
to have
the thing. It's a bell curve, okay? So you're at the climbing peak, like not good and even decent jokes. It's going to crush all the puns. What's going to happen by the time they get the driver's license, even actual funny crushers are going to be lame because they just don't have a category for you to be awesome. You know what I mean? So enjoy it while you can, brother. No diapers, no driver's license. That's the glory days.
Well, I'm just going to say right now, we currently are in a culture that thinks saying 2 numbers back to back that I refuse to say and doing some stupid thing with their hands is funny for some reason. So I'm just going to lean into it even whenever it stops landing, on the back end towards the driver's licenses. But Joby, that's all for me. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Nah, man. Look forward to the stuff we got coming up a lot.
Well, hey, but what about next month? What do we do? Is it because on this one, I'm going to have to call it Ask a Pastor / podcaster because neither one of us did our job. What about next one? Is it Ask a Pastor or Ask a Podcaster? You get to choose.
We can do Ask a Podcaster. I'll be fully prepared.
All right. Come with bells on. We'll see you next time, Joby.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.